discovery without its discoverer. There are tragedies that unfold loudly, with sirens and spectacle. And then there are those that unfold silently, buried in laboratories, in notebooks, in the quiet corners of scientific history, where the human cost is recorded, not in headlines, but in footnotes. On October 18, 1962, the world applauded three men: James Watson, Francis Crick, Maurice Wilkins. Their names circled the globe, printed in bold letters as the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine recognized their discovery of the structure of DNA, unlocking the fundamental blueprint of life. It was hailed as one of the greatest scientific triumphs of the century. Yet amid the applause, something felt incomplete. A silence hung over the celebration, a silence shaped like the scientist who wasn't there. Rosalind Franklin had died 4 years earlier, at 37. She never knew how history would tell the story. She never knew her work would be overshadowed. She never heard the applause for the discovery she had helped make possible. But her absence was more than a blank space. It was a question, a wound, a whisper the world would not notice until decades later. How do you celebrate a discovery while standing on the unmarked shoulders of the person who saw the truth first? This is not simply a scientific story. It is a human one, an emotional, painful, beautiful human story about ambition, brilliance, misunderstanding, sacrifice, rivalry, and the complicated, fragile hearts behind even the greatest minds. If history is made of facts, then humanity is what gives those facts meaning. This is the story of Rosalind Franklin, not the myth, not the caricature, but the woman, the scientist, the human being whose extraordinary clarity of mind coexisted with profound loneliness, whose precision cost her friendships, whose devotion cost her peace, and whose brilliance cost her the recognition she deserved. This is the story of a discovery the world celebrated, and the pain of the person it forgot. The child who saw what others missed. Long before, Rosalind Franklin stepped into a laboratory before she looked at carbon, coal, or DNA. She was a child who saw the world differently, not through wonder or fantasy, but through structure. Most children dissolve problems into imagination. Rosalind dissolved imagination into logic. She memorized shapes, patterns, numbers. She found comfort in order, in clarity, in the reassuring stability of things that obeyed the rules. Even playing seemed like an exercise in understanding how the world worked. While others colored inside lines, she examined why the lines were there. Her teachers noticed it immediately. Her family noticed it reluctantly. Her classmates noticed it with confusion. She was too serious, they said. Too focused, too intense. But Rosalind wasn't intense. She was clear. Even at 6, she knew. Understanding was her purpose. Yet clarity comes with a cost. Clarity isolates. Clarity sets you apart. Clarity makes others uncomfortable when they don't share it. From childhood, Rosalind Franklin lived in the space between brilliance and loneliness, a theme that would follow her through every lab, every discovery, every misunderstanding that would shape her life. A woman becoming a scientist in a world unprepared for her. As Rosalind grew, her talent became impossible to ignore. She excelled in mathematics, physics, chemistry, fields dominated entirely by men, fields guarded by invisible gates of expectation. Her mind was sharp, her instincts were fearless, her standards were uncompromising, but brilliance in a woman in her era was often treated not with admiration, but resistance. Teachers praised her intellect, yet warned her about ambition. Universities accepted her reluctantly. Colleagues underestimated her before hearing her speak. Rosalind Franklin learned early that her intelligence was both her weapon and her obstacle. She was allowed to enter the halls of science, but not welcomed. She was respected for her ability, but resented for her certainty. And so she developed a habit that would define her life. She built emotional armor out of precision. Where others softened statements with maybe or perhaps, she spoke in conclusions. Where others tried to flatter, she tried to clarify. Where others navigated politics, she navigated truth. This made her powerful in science, but it cost her profoundly in relationships. Science rewards clarity. People often do not. Carbon, coal, and the birth of a visionary. Rosalind's first great scientific chapter began not with DNA, but with coal. During World War II, she studied the atomic structure of carbon, research essential for gas masks, fuel efficiency, and wartime survival. Her work was meticulous. It required patience, discipline, and the ability to interpret X-ray diffraction patterns, strange shadows that only a few minds could decode. She saw order in chaos. She saw patterns in randomness. She saw meaning in what others dismissed as noise. This was more than a skill. It was a worldview. Rosalind saw the world not as it appeared, but as it truly was beneath the surface. Coal taught her how to see structure where others saw nothing. X-rays taught her how to listen to matter's whispers. Patterns taught her how to speak the language of atoms. Without this chapter, there would be no Photo 51, no double helix, no discovery. But while she mastered the invisible world, the visible world remained complicated. In male-dominated labs, she was seen as difficult for insisting on accuracy. She was seen as cold for not diluting truth with charm. She was seen as challenging for refusing to bend to hierarchy. But Rosalind Franklin was not difficult. She was direct. She was not cold. She was focused. She was not challenging. She simply would not betray the rigor that defined her. This fidelity to truth made her one of the most brilliant scientists of her generation, and it also made her one of its most misunderstood. The road to King's College. A collision waiting to happen. By 1951, Rosalind was already an authority in X-ray crystallography, and King's College London wanted her. Or more accurately, parts of King's wanted her, and parts did not realize what they were inviting in. Miscommunication shaped her fate before she even arrived. Rosalind believed she had been hired to lead the DNA project. Maurice Wilkins believed she was hired to assist him. Two visions, two egos, two incompatible expectations. What could have been collaboration became conflict. What could have been partnership became rivalry. What could have been mutual respect became quiet resentment. Rosalind did not hide her precision. Wilkins did not hide his insecurity. And in the tension between them, something fragile was already beginning to crack. Rosalind Franklin walked into King's College, not knowing she was entering one of the most emotionally charged scientific rivalries of the century. A rivalry that would help illuminate DNA while simultaneously destroying trust, friendship, and any chance at recognition. This tension was not just scientific, it was profoundly human. Photo 51, the image that revealed everything. By 1952, Rosalind Franklin had done something no one else had managed. She captured a diffraction pattern so clear, so elegant, so unmistakably helical, that it contained the very structure of DNA within it. Photo 51. It was not luck, it was mastery, the result of relentless refinement, emotional resilience, and intellectual discipline that few could match. But capturing the image was only half the journey. Understanding it required a deeper kind of vision. A vision Rosalind Franklin possessed, and one that others would soon use. Without her consent, without her knowledge, without her name. But before we reach the moment of the heist, we must understand the emotional landscape that made it possible. At King's, Rosalind Franklin was brilliant but isolated, respected but resented, essential but excluded, a scientist whose intelligence was undeniable, yet whose humanity was invisible to many around her. This invisibility would become the crack through which her greatest discovery slipped. The loneliness. Inside the lab, loneliness is not always the absence of people. Sometimes it is the absence of understanding. At King's College, Rosalind Franklin worked among colleagues, technicians, and administrators. She heard footsteps in the corridors, conversations in the courtyard, debates in the common rooms. Yet she moved through this world as though separated by a thin, invisible barrier, close enough to see others clearly, but too distant for them to see in return. This was not because she lacked warmth. It was because her environment lacked room. Women at King's were segregated into different dining halls and restricted from certain social spheres. The rules were rigid, unquestioned, and they turned normal professional interactions into obstacles. While her colleagues built camaraderie over lunch, Rosalind often ate alone. She lived in a world where she could examine the structure of matter down to the atomic level, yet could not step freely into the same dining room as the men whose approval shaped her career. The brilliance that gave her purpose also deepened her isolation, and isolation over time becomes a kind of quiet suffering. Still, Rosalind endured it with grace, channeling the weight of loneliness back into the clarity of her work. If people did not understand her, the molecules did. Molecules behaved. Molecules told the truth. Molecules did not twist words or misinterpret intentions, but the human world is not so orderly, and the human world is where the heist would soon unfold. A clash of minds and temperaments. Maurice Wilkins was everything Rosalind Franklin was not. Soft-spoken, where she was direct. Socially fluid, where she was formal. Instinct-driven, where she was analytical. He admired her talent, secretly, sometimes begrudgingly. But he did not understand her. And misunderstanding can be more dangerous than malice. Wilkins interpreted her self-confidence as hostility. Franklin interpreted his hesitancy as condescension. Each saw the other through the lens of their own insecurities. Not enemies, just incompatible. But science does not pause for emotional misalignment. Data continued to be gathered, interpretations continued to diverge, and the structure of DNA hovered just within reach. Had Franklin and Wilkins understood one another, they might have solved it together. Instead, their rift became the crack through which the world's most important scientific insight would slip, right into the hands of two men in Cambridge who were desperate for a breakthrough: James Watson and Francis Crick. The Cambridge duo: genius, ambition, and impatience. Watson and Crick were brilliant, but brilliance alone could not give them what they needed. They had ideas but lacked data. They had models but lacked clarity. They had ambition but lacked patience. They were theorists trying to build a structure they had never seen. Watson's personality was the opposite of Rosalind's: impulsive, social, bold, intuitive, sometimes reckless. Crick was loud, witty, intellectually ferocious, but often overwhelmed by emotion and ego. Together they formed a partnership built not on caution and precision, but on leaps and guesses. They were trying to solve DNA like a puzzle, forcing pieces into place, hoping one configuration would reveal the truth. But their models kept failing. Their assumptions kept collapsing. Their enthusiasm kept outpacing their understanding. They needed data, real data, clear data, the kind of data Rosalind Franklin was producing, and they knew it. Inside the world of mid-century science, ambition was not a flaw, it was the currency. But ambition is heavy, and the fear of failure can twist even the brightest minds into shadows of themselves. Watson feared irrelevance. Crick feared being outpaced. Wilkins feared being overshadowed by the woman he had expected to supervise. Franklin feared nothing except error, yet she felt the weight of scrutiny in every step she took. Each of them carried a burden. Each of them carried a private, unspoken truth. Watson wanted to prove himself as a young genius. Crick wanted to accomplish something worthy of his enormous intellect. Wilkins wanted to be recognized without admitting he needed help. Franklin wanted only to do science correctly, even if it meant doing it alone. These desires would collide in a way none of them intended, an intersection of ego, pressure, loneliness, and ambition that would cost Rosalind Franklin recognition, cost James Watson his moral clarity, and cost history its accuracy. The heist was not a single moment. It was a process, emotional, intellectual, human. A storm gathering. The tension builds. As Franklin refined her methods, her images grew clearer. Her measurements grew more precise. Her notebooks grew more confident. She was closing in on the structure, but she was also growing more isolated. Her directness, which sprang from her devotion to truth, was misread as arrogance. Her independence, which came from necessity, was misinterpreted as insubordination. Her precision, which made her exceptional, made others feel overshadowed. Wilkins, meanwhile, felt steadily displaced. He had believed DNA was his primary domain, until Rosalind arrived and outperformed him in his own territory. He did not resent her success. He resented his own sense of inadequacy. Human frailty wrapped itself around scientific progress. This is the side of science history that textbooks often hide. The hurt feelings, the insecurities, the emotional missteps that shape discoveries just as much as equations and instruments. Scientific breakthroughs are rarely clean. They are tangled webs of brilliance and ego, hope and fear, collaboration and distrust. And at King's College, this web was tightening. The moment of vulnerability. By early 1953, Rosalind Franklin had made extraordinary progress. But she was also preparing to leave King's College. The emotional strain, the misunderstanding, the constant negotiation of respect had worn her down. She was ready to move on, to breathe again, to join a more supportive environment at Birkbeck College. But transitions are moments of vulnerability. As she prepared to leave, her data, the culmination of years of discipline, brilliance, and sacrifice, became more accessible to others in the lab. Not through malice, not through theft in the cinematic sense, but through social dynamics she never benefited from it. And on one quiet day, when Maurice Wilkins was showing James Watson around the lab, the moment that would define her legacy occurred. Wilkins opened a drawer. He took out photo 51. He handed it to Watson. And for the first time, Watson saw what Rosalind had seen months earlier. the signature of a double helix, the clarity he and Crick had been unable to produce, the missing piece of their collapsing models, the key to the structure of life. A key that was not his to take, but he took it anyway. Not out of malice, but out of ambition. And ambition is often blind. The DNA heist Watson stared at photo 51 and felt something electric. He later wrote that his jaw dropped. In that moment, he understood exactly what the image meant, and exactly how close Rosalind was to solving the puzzle. This was not just data. This was a revelation. He left King's College with the image burned into his memory. He and Crick immediately began rebuilding their model. They made calculations based on numbers Franklin had produced. They corrected their mistakes using her insights. They reached the solution because her work lit the path. Rosalind Franklin was still analyzing her results because she refused to publish until she was absolutely certain. But Watson and Crick were not waiting for certainty. They were waiting for an opportunity, and photo 51 gave them one. The heist was not a single theft. It was a cascade of human failings. Wilkins wanted approval. Watson wanted success. Crick wanted triumph. Franklin wanted accuracy. In that mix, her caution became their advantage. Her precision became their shortcut. Her absence from informal networks became their opening. This is the human side of science that history often sanitizes. The way breakthroughs are not only built by genius, but shaped by loneliness, envy, insecurity, pride, silence, and ambition. Rosalind Franklin solved the structure of DNA. She simply did not publish first. And in science, as in life, timing often shapes legacy more than truth. The breakthrough built on unspoken sacrifice. After seeing photo 51, everything changed for Watson and Crick. What had been a scientific puzzle became a sprint. What had been uncertainty became clarity. What had been failure after failure suddenly clicked into place. They returned to Cambridge and worked with a fervor bordering on desperation. They were men who believed they had glimpsed the answer to a question humanity had been asking for centuries. And they were determined to be the ones to reveal it first. For Watson, it was a chance to prove himself to the scientific world that had not yet accepted him. For Crick, it was a chance to fulfill the destiny he felt pulsing inside his intellect, a validation of a mind that never stopped racing. For both, it was an opportunity too great to resist. But the foundation of their breakthrough, the equations, the measurements, the angles, the helical parameters, belonged to someone else. Rosalind Franklin did not know the race she had inspired. She did not know the model being built. She did not know her calculations, recorded with painstaking care in her notebooks, were being used as the scaffolding for Watson and Crick's discovery. They were using her work, and she was working alone. A team of two men, socially connected, institutionally supported, driven by ambition and adrenaline, were racing ahead, guided by the insights of a woman they barely understood and never truly respected. This is not the villainization of Watson and Crick. It is the human truth. In moments of great opportunity, people often act out of fear. Fear of being second, fear of being forgotten, fear of irrelevance. Watson feared losing his chance at brilliance. Crick feared watching another scientist claim the throne of genetic discovery. Wilkins feared being overshadowed by the woman whose clarity outpaced his own. Fear is a powerful force in science. It is also a deeply human one. While Watson and Crick were racing, Rosalind Franklin was advancing steadily, carefully, meticulously toward the same destination. She analyzed the moisture content of DNA fibers. She distinguished two forms, A and B. She measured the helical repeat distances with precision. She mapped the symmetry. She calculated density values that suggested a double-stranded structure. Step by step, she carved a path through uncertainty, but she refused to publish until she understood everything completely, systematically, indisputably. She did not chase credit. She chased the truth. And truth, to her, demanded integrity. It demanded patience. It demanded exactness. These qualities made her extraordinary, but they also slowed her down. Science often rewards those who shout first, not those who understand best. Rosalind Franklin was nearing the solution, but she did not know that others were racing ahead, using her own work as their torchlight. She was fighting for accuracy. They were fighting for priority. These two battles rarely end the same way. The final model takes shape. In early 1953, Crick announced to his Cambridge colleagues, prematurely, boldly, excitedly, that they had found it. The structure of DNA. A double helix, elegant and self-replicating, capable of explaining the very mechanism of heredity. He said it casually, almost joyfully, in a pub. A dramatic flare of ego and triumph. One version of the story claims he declared, "We have found the secret of life." Whether he said those exact words remains debated, but the sentiment was real. He believed it. Watson believed it. Their colleagues believed it. And Rosalind Franklin still knew nothing. Her work, her insight, her caution, her brilliance, all silently woven into a model she had not seen, could not evaluate, and would not be credited for. This is not merely a story of scientific misconduct. It is a story of unequal access, unequal communication, unequal respect. A story in which a woman's genius could be indispensable, yet her name is invisible. A story of how history is shaped not just by discovery, but by the emotional and social structures surrounding it. On February 28, 1953, Watson and Crick completed their double helix model. They prepared to present it. Word spread across institutions, and when Rosalind Franklin finally saw the model, she realized something painful. They had used insights that mirrored her own unpublished conclusions. They had solved the puzzle using patterns and principles she had been assembling piece by piece. She was not angry, not visibly. Anger was not her language. She was analytical, restrained, measured even in disappointment. But inside, she understood the truth. Her work had been essential, and her contribution would not be recognized. This moment captures the human core of scientific injustice, not rage, not confrontation, but the quiet ache of being unseen. It is one thing to be wrong. It is another to be ignored. It is something else entirely to be right, and have that rightness absorbed into someone else's victory. Rosalind Franklin experienced the third, and she carried it with a quiet dignity the world would not appreciate until decades after her death. In April 1953, 3 papers appeared side by side in Nature, Watson and Crick's announcement of the double helix. Rosalind Franklin's data and analysis, Wilkins' related X-ray findings. On the page it looked like collaboration. In reality it was a coincidence. Franklin had not seen their paper before submitting hers. She did not know they had seen her data, and the order of publication implied credit she was not given. Watson and Crick wrote with confidence, elegance, and triumph. Franklin wrote with precision, caution, and rigor. They claimed the discovery. She provided the proof. History rewarded the claim. Because this is the hinge of the story. This is the point where brilliance meets human frailty, where recognition diverges from contribution, where the scientific world celebrates a discovery whose foundation rests on the unseen labor of a woman about to leave it behind. This is the moment to ask, what is the true cost of genius, and who pays it? Comment below, and do not forget to like and subscribe. After the 1953 publications, the scientific world began shifting rapidly. Watson and Crick were being talked about as the duo who cracked the code of life. Wilkins was recognized as a major contributor. Rosalind Franklin, who had captured the image that made the entire model possible, was already fading from the conversation. But Rosalind herself was not focused on credit. She was exhausted, emotionally, professionally, psychologically, from 2 years of tension, isolation, and misunderstanding at King's College. Leaving King's was not a retreat. It was an act of self-preservation. She accepted a position at Birkbeck College with J.D. Bernal, one of the few scientists who not only recognized her brilliance, but embraced it. Bernal was intellectually radical, open-minded, and socially unconventional. Exactly the kind of environment where Rosalind could breathe again. And for the first time in years, she felt a sense of belonging. At Birkbeck, she found colleagues who respected her, a supervisor who valued her students, who admired her freedom to pursue her own scientific questions. This chapter of her life is often overshadowed by the DNA controversy, but in many ways, it was the most fulfilling period of her career. Here, she discovered something she had not experienced at King's: human warmth inside scientific collaboration. The human struggle theme shifts here, from emotional isolation to fragile restoration. A new scientific frontier: viruses. Rosalind Franklin did not cling to DNA. She did not linger on the heist. She did not allow bitterness to consume her. Instead, she turned to a new frontier: viruses. Using her mastery of X-ray diffraction, she analyzed viral structures with the same precision she had once applied to coal and DNA. Her focus shifted to the tobacco mosaic virus, TMV, a long, rod-shaped particle whose structure had puzzled scientists for decades. Her clarity transformed the field. She discovered the precise arrangement of the TMV protein coat. She revealed the way its RNA wound through the center. She provided visual and mathematical proof that viruses had structural order, not chaotic randomness. Her work laid the foundation for modern virology, a field that would, decades later, become central to global health. But even as she soared scientifically, something darker was happening inside her body. The first signs of illness. Rosalind Franklin worked long hours, often 7 days a week, fueled by her devotion to truth and her fear of wasting time. She ignored discomfort. She dismissed fatigue. She was accustomed to pushing through. But in 1956, she began experiencing severe abdominal pain. At first, she assumed it was stress or exhaustion, or the natural cost of her intensely disciplined lifestyle. But it grew worse. Doctors diagnosed ovarian cancer, already advanced. The likely cause? Her years of working near unshielded X-ray equipment, often alone, often late into the night, often without the protective measures male colleagues received or enforced. Her devotion to science had exposed her to invisible harm. Her workplace, where she fought so hard to be seen, had failed to protect her. This is the tragedy beneath the scientific triumph. Rosalind Franklin didn't just give her mind to discovery, she gave her body. Cancer didn't stop Rosalind Franklin from working. Not immediately. not even after multiple surgeries, not even as her strength declined. During her remission in 1957, she produced some of her finest research. She traveled, collaborated, presented, and continued to uncover viral structures with a clarity no one else could match. She worked through pain that would have crushed others. She endured exhaustion with a calmness that astonished her colleagues. She maintained her precision even as her body faltered. This is the human side of science rarely told. The scientist as a person battling not just intellectual problems, but the fragility of their own mortality. Rosalind's colleagues at Birkbeck adored her. They shielded her from stress. They protected her when she grew too weak. They loved her, not just for her mind, but for her loyalty, wit, and unexpected warmth. She had finally found the community she deserved, but she was running out of time. The end of the journey. In March of 1958, Rosalind Franklin was hospitalized for the final time. She continued reviewing papers from her bed. She continued advising her students. She continued thinking about viruses, symmetry, and the underlying order of nature. Even in her last days, she was asking questions no one else could articulate. On April 16, 1958, she died at age 37. 37, the age when most scientists are just beginning to produce their greatest work. The age when Watson and Crick were celebrating their rise. The age when many careers are barely taking shape. The human tragedy lies not just in her early death, but in the loss of what she would have contributed had she lived. Her colleagues mourned her deeply. Bernal wept openly during his eulogy. Students wrote letters describing how she changed their lives. Even Wilkins, whose relationship with her had been strained and painful, later admitted his profound respect for her mind. History did not mourn her. Not yet. History had not realized what it lost. The Nobel Prize and the silence that followed. 4 years later, in 1962, Watson, Crick, and Wilkins received the Nobel Prize. Rosalind Franklin's name was not mentioned. Her contribution was not acknowledged. Her image, photo 51, was not credited. She was gone, and therefore easy to erase. Some say the Nobel Committee's rules prevented recognition, since prizes cannot be awarded posthumously. But rules do not prevent acknowledgement. They do not prevent gratitude. They do not prevent the truth. Watson and Crick did not publicly credit Franklin until much later, after criticism grew and her role became undeniable. Even then, reflections were inconsistent, alternating between admiration and dismissive commentary about her personality. Her humanity was weaponized to diminish her legacy. This is the deepest human wound in the story, to give the world one of its greatest scientific foundations, and to be remembered as difficult rather than brilliant. The erasure was not intentional cruelty. It was a reflection of a system that rewarded connection over rigor, charm over clarity, men over women. Rosalind Franklin was the wrong personality in the wrong institution at the wrong time, and the world almost lost her story because of it. Decades passed. Science advanced. Genetics exploded into the defining field of modern biology. DNA became the symbol of identity, heredity, medicine, justice. And slowly, scholars began asking uncomfortable questions. Where exactly did the data come from? Who captured photo 51? Why did Watson and Crick's work accelerate so suddenly? Why did Rosalind Franklin's name nearly disappear? The truth resurfaced piece by piece, a story reconstructed from letters, notebooks, interviews, and overlooked accounts. And as the truth returned, something remarkable happened. Rosalind Franklin's legacy began to grow. Not as a martyr, not as an icon, not as a symbol of victimhood, but as one of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. A woman of precision, courage, integrity, and unshakable devotion to truth. A scientist whose work became the foundation of modern genetics. A human being whose struggles revealed the emotional costs behind genius. Today, her name stands not beside Watson, Crick, and Wilkins, but above them in many ways. She is remembered not just as a contributor, but as the key. Not just as a participant, but as the visionary whose clarity made the double helix visible. Her story endures because it speaks to something universal. Greatness is not always recognized in its time. Truth is not always rewarded when first spoken. Brilliance is not always seen, especially when it belongs to someone whom the world has not been taught to see. Rosalind Franklin didn't solve the structure of DNA for glory. She did it for the truth. And truth, slow, quiet, resilient, eventually rises. The aftershocks of a discovery built on silence. When Rosalind Franklin died in 1958, the world barely noticed. Her colleagues mourned her deeply, but her name had not yet reached the public. She had been a brilliant mind working in the shadows of a system not built to illuminate her. And while the scientific community moved forward, a quiet unease remained among those who had known her. It wasn't guilt in the dramatic sense. It was something more human. The slow realization that someone deserving of kindness, recognition, and a place in history had not received any of it. Maurice Wilkins felt it first. The more distance he gained from King's College, the more he understood that the tensions between them were not the result of her temperament, but of a hostile environment he had not defended her from. James Watson felt it later. His early writings about Franklin, which reduced her to a caricature, became something he publicly backtracked from. He began acknowledging that he had misjudged her, misunderstood her, and underestimated her intellectual power. Francis Crick felt it too. He admitted openly that her data had been critical, and that their breakthrough had been accelerated by work she had not been credited for. None of them intended historical injustice, but intentions rarely shape legacy. Actions do, and their actions, shaped by ambition, insecurity, and the culture of their time, led to the erasure of a woman whose fingerprints were all over the structure of life. This is not a story about villains. It is a story about humans, flawed, brilliant, driven, and brave. The real nature of the DNA heist. The heist was not a dramatic theft. It did not involve midnight espionage or deliberate sabotage. It happened through a series of very human cracks, a misunderstood job description, a workplace where Rosalind was isolated socially and professionally, a culture that excluded women from informal scientific networks, colleagues who shared her data casually, assuming she would not mind her own reluctance to publish before absolute certainty, the urgency and ambition of Watson and Crick, a system that rewarded speed over accuracy, confidence over humility. The theft was not of an image. It was of acknowledgement, of a rightful place, of narrative. And the tragedy was not that Rosalind Franklin's work was used. It was that her work was essential, and she was never told so. She contributed the most solid, rigorous data. She provided the clarity that theory required. She generated the image that unlocked the double helix. and the discovery moved forward without her, not because she was unworthy, but because she was unseen. What Rosalind Franklin wanted. She did not want fame. She did not want applause. She did not want the spotlight Watson and Crick sprinted toward. What she wanted was simple. The science to be correct. Her work is to be respected. Her place in the scientific process to be acknowledged, to be treated as a colleague, not an outsider. She wanted truth. But truth alone does not guarantee recognition. Truth alone does not prevent erasure. Truth alone does not defend the people who carry it. Franklin's devotion to accuracy, her greatest strength, became the very trait that slowed her, isolated her, and left her vulnerable to the ambitions of others. Her early death silenced her before she could claim what she had built. The Nobel Prize arrived 4 years later, and with it, a story the world accepted too easily. But history is alive. It shifts, it breathes, it revises itself when the truth is strong enough. Decades after her death, the deeper story emerged. Her notebooks revealed her brilliance. Her colleagues revealed their regret. Her letters revealed her humanity. And scholars revealed the centrality of her contribution. Rosalind Franklin's legacy began to rise, from overshadowed figure to the essential mind, from supporting character to the central architect, from cautionary tale to symbol of integrity, rigor, and resilience. Her story resonates now because it mirrors a truth still present in every field. Brilliance does not always come with recognition. Integrity does not always come with reward. And genius does not always come with justice. Rosalind Franklin's life holds a mirror to the human side of science. A world driven by curiosity and illuminated by intellect, yet deeply shaped by ego, culture, misunderstanding, and fear. As we approach the end of her story, we arrive at the final truth. She didn't fail. She was failed, and yet she won something greater than the prize she never received. She won clarity. She won a legacy that outlived those who once overshadowed her. She won a place in history earned not through narrative, but through evidence. Her work stands unshakable. Her data endures. Her image, Photo 51, remains one of the most important scientific artifacts ever produced. And today, her name carries more weight than any medal ever could. In the end, Rosalind Franklin's story becomes a quiet triumph of truth over time. Though she died before the world understood what she had given it, her work refused to disappear. The double helix, the very symbol of life, still carries her fingerprints, even if her name was once left off the discovery. History initially celebrated only the men who published first, but the deeper record of notebooks, calculations, and memories slowly revealed the truth. Franklin had seen the structure clearly, rigorously, bravely, long before anyone acknowledged it. Her brilliance and integrity outlasted the biases that once buried her. What was taken from her was recognition. What was never taken was the quality of her mind. Over the decades, the world finally grew into the truth she always embodied. Her name now stands as a symbol of scientific courage, of doing the work correctly, even when the world is not ready to see you. She reminds us that discovery is not just equations and images. It is human struggle, sacrifice, loneliness, and resilience. Rosalind Franklin didn't live to see her vindication, but her legacy rose anyway, quietly, steadily, undeniably, proving that truth waits, brilliance survives, and the light she carried burns longer than any shadow that once obscured it. If stories like this move you, stories of hidden genius, untold struggles, and the human hearts behind history's greatest breakthroughs, then keep going with us. Subscribe for more untold science stories, the ones that were forgotten, buried, misunderstood, or never fully told. Do not forget to like, comment, and share. And remember, behind every discovery is a human being, and some of the greatest scientists the world has ever known are still waiting for their stories to be heard.